My 15-year-old sister is a thief and my parents do nothing. This has been happening for years, and at this point it feels like a routine, a frustrating, soul-draining routine. When I was younger, I thought I was just forgetful, misplacing things, losing track of where I had left my favorite book or a set of markers. I blamed myself. You have to be more organized, I'd tell myself. But then one day, I found my missing books, the ones I was sure had vanished into thin air, sitting right there on my younger sister's shelf, neatly arranged, as if she owned them. That was when it hit me. She was the one taking my stuff. The first time I confronted her was a disaster. I stormed into her room, holding one of the books in my hand. "Why do you have this? This is mine," I remember saying, my voice shaking more from disbelief than anger. She didn't even flinch. She just shrugged and said something like, "Well, you weren't using it." I demanded she return the books, and things escalated quickly. She refused, I insisted, and before I knew it, we were struggling over the book. She hit me hard. I could taste blood on my lip. When my parents came in, I thought, finally, someone is going to set things right. But instead, they turned on me. "You should learn to share," they said, as if I had done something wrong. Share? How am I supposed to share something if I was never even asked? She just took it. That's not sharing. That's stealing. From that point on, every time I caught her taking something of mine, it played out the same way. Me, the villain for not sharing. Her, the golden child who could do no wrong. It did not matter what the item was, books, art supplies, even clothes. Each time, I ended up feeling completely unprotected. Not just by her, but by my parents, who seemed to excuse her behavior without question. I felt like I was living in a house where my things and my feelings did not matter. The last straw was when I noticed my set of expensive markers missing. I use those for art, and they are not cheap. I saved up for months to buy them. But instead of confronting her or telling my parents, I quietly took them back, locked them in my backpack, and bought a combination lock. It was not just about the markers anymore. It was about drawing a line. If my parents were not going to do anything about her being a thief, I would protect my stuff myself. The thing is, this is not just about stuff. It is about trust and respect, neither of which I feel in my own home. It feels like no one takes me seriously. My parents keep brushing this off as normal sibling behavior. But is it really normal to let one sibling constantly take advantage of the other? I cannot help but think about the future. If this is how she behaves at 15, how will she act as an adult? Will she still feel entitled to take what she wants? What happens when it is not just my things she takes, but something that impacts other people? I am exhausted. I do not want to be the one always on guard, always locking up my belongings, always waiting for the next argument. I just want my parents to see what is really happening and to hold her accountable. Because if they keep enabling her, they are not just failing me, they are failing her too. Update 1. Alright, so here's the deal. First of all, thanks to everyone who commented on my original post. I wasn't expecting so much support or advice, and honestly, it was a little overwhelming to read through it all. But a lot of what you said really hit home. It made me realize I'm not crazy for feeling the way I do, and that what's happening isn't just normal sibling stuff. So, seriously, thanks for that. Now, let's get into what happened. After reading a ton of comments, I decided I couldn't just keep locking my stuff up and ignoring the problem. I mean, sure, the lock works for now, but that doesn't solve the bigger issue. My parents not taking me seriously, and my sister thinking she can do whatever she wants. So, I decided to try talking to my parents again. Like, really talking to them, no yelling or storming out this time. I waited until after dinner last Saturday when everyone was relaxed. I sat them down and said, "I need to talk to you about something that's been bothering me for a long time." My mom immediately looked annoyed, like she knew where this was going. My dad just kind of nodded, so I went on. I explained calmly how it makes me feel when my sister takes my things without asking. I told them it's not about sharing or being selfish, it's about basic respect. I said I feel like I'm constantly being dismissed and that their response to these situations only makes things worse. I even gave examples like the markers she stole and the books that caused the fight where she hit me. I was really careful to frame it as me trying to set boundaries, not me attacking my sister. But the moment I mentioned the word boundaries, my mom rolled her eyes. She actually rolled her eyes and said, "Here we go again." I ignored that and kept going. I told them this isn't just some sibling squabble, it's a pattern of behavior that makes me feel unimportant and disrespected. I even tried using some of the advice you guys gave me, like explaining how this could impact her in the future if she doesn't learn that actions have consequences. But as soon as I finished, my mom said, "You're being way too dramatic. This is just how siblings are." My dad chimed in with his usual, You need to learn how to share. She's younger than you. You should set a good example. I tried to explain, for what felt like the millionth time, that this isn't about refusing to share. It's about her taking things without asking and me feeling like I can't trust anyone in my own house. But no matter how I phrased it, they just weren't listening. Then my mom said something that really stuck with me. She said, "You'll understand when you're older how much she looks up to you. You should be flattered." Flattered? I should be flattered that she steals my stuff, lies about it, and gets away with it every single time? That's when I realized I wasn't getting through to them. They had already decided I was overreacting, and nothing I said was going to change their minds. So, after that failed conversation, I went back to my room feeling completely defeated. I sat on my bed for hours, just staring at the lock on my backpack. I kept thinking, this is my life now? Locking my own things up because my parents won't do anything about my sister? It felt so stupid and unfair, but also like there was no way out. That's when I remembered what a lot of you suggested. Gather evidence. If they won't believe my words, maybe they'll believe cold, hard proof. So, I've started recording. I set up my phone to record whenever I leave my room, especially when I know my sister is home. It feels a little sneaky, but honestly, I don't care anymore. If this is what it takes to make them take me seriously, so be it. It's been a couple of days since I started recording, and already I'm seeing things that make me want to scream. She doesn't just take big stuff like my markers or books. She's also swiping little things, pens, hair ties, even my phone charger. And the way she does it, so casual, like she owns the place. Watching her go through my desk like it's hers was honestly infuriating. I haven't shown the recordings to my parents yet. I want to wait until I have enough to really make my case. If I go to them with just one clip, they'll probably brush it off as a one-time thing or accuse me of setting her up. But if I can show them a pattern, her taking things over and over without asking, maybe they'll finally get it. Or maybe they won't. I'm not holding my breath. For now, I'm just trying to keep my cool and not let this whole situation eat me alive. But it's hard. It's really hard when the people who are supposed to protect you act like you're the problem. I'll keep you all updated once I have more to share. Thanks again for sticking with me through this. It means more than you know. Stay tuned. Update 2. Alright, so here we are, 2 weeks since my first post, and things have taken a pretty big turn. After the failed conversation with my parents, I knew talking was not going to cut it anymore. Like I mentioned in my last update, I started gathering evidence, and it has been illuminating, to say the least. I decided to step it up. Instead of just leaving my phone to record, I bought a small, discreet camera online. It is one of those tiny ones you can hide almost anywhere. It took me a couple of days to figure out the perfect spot to place it, somewhere it would catch everything but not be obvious. I ended up hiding it behind a few books on my shelf, angled just enough to cover the whole room. My sister is not exactly Sherlock Holmes, so I was pretty confident she would not notice it. The first day, nothing happened. I checked the footage that night and it was just me leaving and coming back, nothing exciting. But on the second day, jackpot. I left for about an hour to run some errands, and as soon as the front door closed, there she was. She opened my door like it was her own room, walked straight to my desk, and started rummaging through my stuff. Watching it made my blood boil. She was so casual about it, like she had every right to be there. She grabbed one of my notebooks, a couple of pens, and, wait for it, my freaking headphones. She even sat on my bed for a minute, scrolling through her phone before leaving like nothing happened. I saved the footage and decided to keep recording for a few more days to see if this was a one-time thing or part of a larger pattern. Spoiler, it was definitely a pattern. Over the next 3 days, she came into my room twice more, each time taking something different. One day it was a tube of lip balm, the next it was my charger. And the kicker? She never returned any of it. She just took it and acted like it was hers. By the end of the week, I had more than enough evidence. It was time to confront my parents again. But this time, I came prepared. I waited until after dinner again. Seems to be the only time they are both in the same room and not distracted. I told them I needed to show them something important and pulled out my laptop. My dad looked confused, my mom looked annoyed, but they both sat down. I opened the video files and pressed play. The first clip was from the second day, the one where she grabbed my headphones and hung out on my bed. At first, they were silent, just watching. My mom's expression changed almost immediately. She went from annoyed to shocked in a matter of seconds. My dad leaned forward, squinting at the screen like he could not believe what he was seeing. When the clip ended, I played the next one and the next. By the time I finished, neither of them had said a word. Finally, my dad broke the silence. "I cannot believe this," he said, shaking his head. My mom looked at me, then at the screen, then back at me. "Why did you not tell us sooner?" she asked. I almost laughed out loud. "I have been telling you," I said. "You just did not believe me." They sat there for a minute, processing everything. Then my mom said, "We need to talk to her." My dad agreed. They actually looked serious for once, like they finally understood that this is not just me being dramatic. I could tell they were embarrassed, probably more about the fact that they had ignored me for so long than about what my sister was doing. A few hours later, I heard them call her downstairs. I stayed in my room because honestly, I did not want to be part of that conversation. I do not know exactly what they said to her, but I could hear raised voices. My sister was crying by the end of it, which I have to admit gave me a tiny bit of satisfaction. She has never faced any real consequences for her actions before, so maybe this was a wake-up call for her. But here's the thing, I am not entirely convinced this is the end of it. Sure, my parents finally acknowledged the problem and they say they are going to handle it, but they have said things before and nothing really changed. My sister is good at playing the victim, and my parents are good at letting things slide once the immediate drama is over. So while I am glad they are finally taking this seriously, I cannot help but feel a little skeptical. For now, I am keeping the camera in my room. I have also decided not to move my valuable stuff back into plain sight just yet. I need to see if things actually change before I can trust that this is resolved. Maybe this is the wake-up call my sister needed. Or maybe it is just the start of a new phase in this whole mess. Either way, I will be ready. I will let you know how it goes. Stay tuned. Update 3. Here we go again. If you thought my last update sounded like progress, buckle up because things have taken a turn for the worse. Spoiler, my sister's apology was short-lived, and I am right back where I started, or maybe even worse off. After my parents had their serious talk with her, there was this brief moment of hope. For a few days, my sister actually behaved. She stopped barging into my room, stopped taking my stuff, and even returned a couple of the things she had stolen before, though not everything. It almost seemed like she felt genuinely guilty for what she had done. I remember thinking, wow, maybe this actually worked. Yeah, no. By the end of the week, she was back at it. The first thing I noticed was my phone charger disappearing again. At first, I thought I might have misplaced it, but then I checked the camera. Sure enough, there she was, sneaking into my room while I was in the shower. She grabbed the charger from my desk and left like nothing happened. I was furious, but I decided to wait and see if it would escalate further. Spoiler again, it did. A few days later, I realized something else was missing, a necklace my grandmother gave me. It is not super expensive, but it has a lot of sentimental value. When I could not find it anywhere, I checked the camera again, and there she was. This time, she did not just take it, she took it out of the house. That raised a huge red flag for me, so I started digging deeper. Here is where it gets really bad. I found out she has been selling some of the things she takes from me online. That necklace? Gone. She sold it on some secondhand app for quick cash. I confronted her about it and she did not even deny it. She just shrugged and said, "I needed money and you never wear it anyway." I felt like I was going to explode. It was not just about the necklace anymore. It was about the complete lack of respect, the entitlement, and the fact that she thinks she can get away with anything. Of course, I went straight to my parents with this. I showed them the recordings, explained what I had found out, and made it crystal clear that this is no longer just a sibling issue. She is stealing and selling my belongings for money. If that is not serious, I do not know what is. Their reaction? Disappointment. Not with her. Oh no, that would make too much sense. They were disappointed in me. My mom actually said, "Why are you spying on your sister? That is not healthy." My dad just looked uncomfortable and muttered something about figuring out how to handle this. Figuring out how to handle this? Are you kidding me? She has crossed every possible line, and they are still treating it like some minor squabble. I tried to keep my cool, but I ended up snapping. I told them, if you do not do something about this, I will. That got their attention, but not in the way I hoped. My mom accused me of being too harsh and escalating things unnecessarily. My dad told me to calm down and give them time to talk to her. Time? She has had years to change, and nothing has worked because they keep brushing everything under the rug. And now, instead of actually addressing the problem, they are more concerned about how I am handling it. It is maddening. Since then, I have been feeling completely defeated. It is clear to me that if anything is going to change, it will not come from them. I have started locking up even more of my belongings, and I am considering getting a small safe for the things that matter most to me. I should not have to live like this, constantly on guard in my own home, but what choice do I have? The worst part is, I cannot stop thinking about what this means for my sister. She is 15. If she is already doing this now, stealing, lying, and selling other people's stuff, What is she going to be like as an adult? My parents are enabling her behavior by refusing to hold her accountable, and I am terrified of where that will lead. She is learning that she can do whatever she wants with no real consequences, and that is not just bad for me, it is bad for her too. At this point, I do not know what to do. I have tried talking, I have tried showing evidence, and I have tried giving my parents the benefit of the doubt. None of it has worked. If anything, things are getting worse. I feel like I am stuck in this impossible situation where I have to either accept that nothing will change or take matters into my own hands. I am honestly considering reaching out to someone outside the family for help. A counselor, a trusted family friend, anyone who might be able to get through to my parents in a way I cannot. But part of me wonders if even that would make a difference. They seem so set on protecting her that they cannot see the damage they are doing. For now, I am just trying to keep my head above water and figure out my next move. If anyone has dealt with something like this before, I am open to advice. I feel like I have tried everything, but maybe there is something I am missing. Either way, I will keep you updated on what happens next. Thanks for sticking with me through all this. It helps more than I can say. Update 4. Alright, so this is where things start to shift. After weeks of feeling like I was screaming into the void, I decided I needed backup. My parents were clearly not listening to me, and my sister's behavior was only getting worse. If I kept handling this alone, I knew nothing would change. So, I reached out to someone I thought might actually get through to them. My uncle. To give some context, my uncle, my dad's older brother, is one of the few people my parents actually respect and listen to. He is the kind of person who does not sugarcoat things but still knows how to say them in a way that people will take seriously. Growing up, he was like a second parent to me, so I figured if anyone could knock some sense into them, it would be him. I called him and explained everything. My sister stealing my stuff, the video evidence, the selling my belongings online, and my parents brushing it all off. I could hear the disbelief in his voice as I laid it all out. He was furious, not just at my sister, but at my parents for allowing things to get this far. He said something like, "This is not just sibling drama. This is a serious problem, and if your parents do not step up, it will only get worse." A few days later, he came over for dinner. My parents had no idea what was coming, and honestly, I felt a little guilty about blindsiding them. But at this point, I was desperate. After dinner, my uncle asked if we could all sit down to talk. He started by saying he had heard about the situation and that he was concerned, not just for me, but for the whole family. Then he dropped the hammer. He told my parents flat out that by ignoring my sister's behavior, they were enabling her. He explained that stealing and lying at her age is not just a phase. It is a sign of deeper issues that need to be addressed. He pointed out that if she is already selling stolen items online at 15, what is to stop her from escalating to worse behavior as she gets older? He also brought up the legal risks. What happens if she gets caught? What if someone reports her? That is a criminal record waiting to happen, and it would not just affect her. It would reflect on the whole family. My parents were dead silent. I could tell they were shocked, maybe even embarrassed. My dad tried to defend their inaction at one point, saying something like, "We did not think it was that serious." But my uncle shut that down immediately. "You did not think it was serious? Your daughter is stealing and selling her siblings' belongings for cash. If that is not serious, what is?" My mom started to tear up at that point, and I think it finally hit her just how badly they had been handling this. The conversation went on for over an hour. My uncle was firm but fair, making it clear that this was not about blaming them. It was about fixing the problem before it got any worse. By the end of it, my parents agreed that they needed to take stronger action. For the first time, I felt like they were really listening. The next day, they sat down with my sister and laid out some new rules. First, they cut off her allowance entirely. No more money for snacks, outings, or anything else unless she earned it through chores or other responsibilities. Second, they started monitoring her online activity more closely, including the apps she uses to sell things. My mom even took her phone for a couple of days as a wake-up call. They also told her that if she took anything of mine again, there would be no second chances. They would sell some of her own belongings to replace whatever she had taken or sold. And if it escalated further, they would involve a counselor or therapist to address the root of her behavior. To my surprise, my sister actually seemed shaken by all of this. I do not know if it was my uncle's involvement, the new rules, or the threat of losing her own things, but she has been a lot more subdued since then. She even apologized to me, though it was awkward and clearly forced. But at least it was something. Do I think this is the end of the problem? Honestly, I am not sure. This feels like a step in the right direction, but I am still cautious. My parents have a tendency to backslide once the immediate drama dies down, and my sister is nothing if not manipulative. For now, I am keeping my guard up and leaving the camera in my room, just in case. That said, it does feel good to finally have someone on my side. If my uncle had not stepped in, I do not think my parents would have ever taken this seriously. I am grateful to him for that, and I hope this is the start of real change. Not just for me, but for the whole family. I will keep you all updated if anything else happens. Fingers crossed this sticks. Update 5. Here we are. Finally, some good news to share. After everything that has happened, it feels strange to say this, but I think things are genuinely starting to improve. It has not been an overnight transformation, but for the first time in what feels like forever, I see signs of progress. First, let us talk about my parents. After my uncle's intervention, they have been taking their role in this situation much more seriously. They have stopped brushing off my concerns as just sibling stuff and are actually holding my sister accountable. The changes they implemented, cutting her allowance, monitoring her online activity, and enforcing stricter boundaries, seem to be making a difference. For one, they are now actively involved in making sure my sister understands the consequences of her actions. My dad sat her down last week and explained why trust and respect are so important, not just within the family, but in life in general. He even admitted to me later that he regretted not stepping in sooner. Hearing that felt bittersweet. It is frustrating that it took this long, but at least they are finally doing something. As for my sister, well, she is not a saint now, but I will take what I can get. She has started asking before touching my stuff, which honestly feels like a miracle considering where we were just a few weeks ago. It is still awkward, and I can tell she does not like it, but she is making an effort. For example, the other day she asked if she could borrow one of my notebooks for a school project. I agreed, and she actually returned it in perfect condition the next day. Baby steps, but still steps in the right direction. That said, I am not letting my guard down completely. I still keep my valuables locked up, and the camera is still in my room. It might sound paranoid, but after everything that has happened, I have learned that it is better to be safe than sorry. The trust is not fully rebuilt yet, and I think it will take a long time before I feel like I do not need those safeguards anymore. And honestly, that is okay. I would rather be cautious than end up back at square one. One thing I have realized through all of this is how important it is to set boundaries and stand up for yourself, even when it feels like no one is listening. For so long, I felt like I was screaming into the void, trying to get my parents to understand what I was going through. It took bringing in my uncle, gathering evidence, and weeks of persistence, but eventually, they got the message. That is a lesson I will carry with me for the rest of my life. Another thing that has surprised me is how much my sister is capable of change when she is held accountable. For years, she has been allowed to do whatever she wanted without consequences, and it is clear now that was a big part of the problem. Once my parents started enforcing rules and making her face the impact of her actions, she had no choice but to adjust. It is not perfect, and there is still a lot of work to be done, but I am cautiously optimistic about where things are headed. As I write this, I feel a strange mix of relief and exhaustion. This entire ordeal has been draining in ways I did not expect, but it has also taught me a lot about resilience, communication, and the importance of having people in your corner. If my uncle had not stepped in when he did, I do not think I would have made it through this with my sanity intact. And if my parents had not eventually listened, I would still be stuck in a cycle of frustration and helplessness. I hope my story helps someone out there feel a little less alone and gives them the confidence to tackle their own challenges. Whether it is dealing with difficult family dynamics, standing up for yourself, or just figuring out how to navigate a tough situation, know that things can get better. It might take time and it might not look exactly how you imagined, but progress is possible. For now, I am taking things one day at a time. I do not know what the future holds, but I am hopeful that we are moving in the right direction. Thank you for following along on this journey. It has meant more to me than I can put into words. Stay strong and do not be afraid to fight for what you deserve.